Our guest of Big Agenda on Prime Reporters Television is Honorable Aminu Sulaiman Goro. He represents Fagge Federal constituency of Kano State and is also the chairman standing committee on tertiary institution. Honorable Aminu Sulaiman is an administrator politician and a ranking member of the House of Representatives. He discussed the lingering strike in tertiary institutions across the country and the chances of youth in the forthcoming general elections.
Committee, we are responsible for the oversight of all tertiary institutions and agencies that superintend over all our institutions of higher learning. This presupposes that all the universities in the country, all the polytechnics, all the colleges of education, all other institutional academic institutions that are tertiary in nature, including agencies that are supervising them, the ministry, the National Board for Technical Education, the National Commission for Colleges of Education, the National Universities Commission, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, otherwise known as TETFON. In brevity, we are responsible for oversighting these institutions, for appropriation, for updating. There are rules of engagement, the rest in brevity.
Okay, so as the committee chairman, what has the committee done concerning the lingering strike on the federal institutions?
Well, I kept keeping this position that first, the right to strike is a fundamental provision that belongs to any worker world over. And therefore, there is no working relationship that is devoid of strike, no working relationship. However, if you are specific on the lingering industrial actions in our institutions of higher learning, I will say that it is reprehensible. Reprehensible on the part of the actors, that is the Association of All Employees in Tertiary Institutions on one hand, and of course the government on the other hand. I would want to say that disagreement leading to strikes usually emanate from agitation for improved welfare, for better working environment, and of course that usually leads to demand for additional funding, and in most cases such of those demands met other competing demand from other sectors other than education. And therefore, government that is responsible for servicing all the other sectors have to contend with different demand from each sector. But to be a little bit personal, sentimental, we will say that what we are concerned about is actually matters of education, because that is our responsibility. And therefore, I would not want to dismiss by fiat reasons usually adduced by the association, but I am as concerned as any other parent as to the continuous disruption of our academic calendar that has adversely affected academic pursuit by our children. Nobody now, parent or student, can sit down and calculate that I'm going to do a program, a degree program that ordinarily by academic calendar should not last more than 4 years, at the most, depending on the discipline, 5 years. There are times you see our children staying in the university for over 8 and 9 years. This is purely as a result of ceaseless and serious industrial actions that usually led to closure of our schools and classes. And most time, even as much as we try to partner with the associations in our institutions, sometimes to pressurize government to yield and give in, most of the time too, we are constrained to advise the association to begin to seek and rationalize positively, positively with due respect, factors leading to closure of academic work. Because at the end of the day, the injury is to the system and to the children of the poor, who may not afford to pursue private education or probably travel abroad. And this constitutes a minimum of 70% of our population. And therefore, as much as it is constitutional, it is legal, it is their right to withdraw their services whenever they feel that their welfare is being threatened. At the same time, we also needed to place simultaneously the interest of the country, the interest of the system itself, and of course, the right and security of our own children to acquire education without let or hindrance.
Okay, now, sir, as a lawmaker of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, looking into the Electoral Amendment Bill and the controversies issues surrounding it based on direct, indirect, and consensus, do you have any take on that?
Well, I would not want to go back to that because as a member of the parliament, we have voted for direct primaries. But in the wisdom of the framers of our constitution, they have also extended the right of any bill to come into effect to the assent of Mr. President. We have done our job, taking into cognizance all factors that could deepen, sustain, and protect democracy. That was the reason why the legislature decided on a direct. All other reasons, adduced either by media or through the media, are at best speculative. To the best of our conclusion, we arrive at a direct primaries for all parties, so that the ownership and right to field a candidate will return to the mass of the people of Nigeria, instead of a collective few who will sit down either through personal aggrandizement as individuals to ask for patronage before they pick a candidate, or through the instrumentality of a godfather. We said every candidate should subject himself to the acceptability of the people, meaning that you must face the electorate 2 times. As a matter of fact, if you critically look at it, we are adding burden onto ourselves. You have to face the electorate to emerge as a candidate through the primary, and you return again to the secondary election and face. Ordinarily, if we want to be selfish and lazy, we'll have eliminated the direct. Because you just have to contend with few people. How you go to have the mandate may be simpler and easier than to face the mass of the people. But we choose the latter. However, the president in his own wisdom too was held assent. People might argue that we have the power to override him. Yes, we have. But again, sometimes you don't close your eyes because you are crying. Because if you do that, it may lead to double jeopardy. You might run into a ditch and add to the injury that caused the crime in the first place. And therefore, we assume the toga of statement and say the president don't want it. If we put drag record that the period within which we must dispense with this is also limited. So if we keep dragging, it then means that the totality of the amendment in the Electoral Act will go into oblivion because of one particular clause. And that is why we say the president should have it. We surrendered to the issue of direct, indirect, and consensus. Of course, we knew that majority of the party leadership would go for consensus or indirect because it suits, with due respect to most of them, that are parochial interests. No problem. We shall reach the El Dorado one day since we are on course. But we don't want to delay it and it resort to ego. He has powers, we have powers too. No. We try to give in a statement so that, like Bob Marley always said, he who fights and run away lives to fight another day. Because there are also other contending clauses that if we insist on this, the constitutional provision to do amendment will come and pass, and automatically the exercise comes into nullity. So we surrendered, and we make a few amendments again and return it back to the president. We are now waiting for his assent, realizing that we have less than 10 days now to go by the provision of the Constitution.
Okay, sir. 2023 election is hard hitting. Now, youths are eager to have a younger person take the seat. Do you see any chances of a younger person occupying the number one seat?
You see, all this mantra of the youth and the old. I am not used to speaking to the camera. And you know what is speaking to the camera? You speak diplomatically and lie pathologically because you want to impress the people. All the people that rule us in this country, are they not youth? If not from Obasanjo and Buhari, all the people. Jonathan becomes president at the age around 50. Ditto for Eradua. Murtala and Gawan were at 30 and 35. So if it is good or bad, the architect also and the youth. All this mantra, let me tell you, is for me good leadership is a matter of individual and mind. You could get a young man whose vision, focus, commitment, and patriotism to the cause of Nigeria and Nigerian people. You can also get a cantankerous youth who would drive us crazy into River Niger. Crazy into River Niger. I don't want to mention the name. Go and search. Some of the youngest governors in Nigeria, go to their state and show us their scorecard. I don't want to assume, I don't want to preempt, but you are a journalist. I don't want to patronize my governor. I don't want. But take the activities of some of the older generation. Okay, go to Kaduna. I'm not from Kaduna State. And I am not necessarily a fan of Erufai. Go to his state and go to another state. I don't want to mention another state. Go to another state where the governor is between the age of 40 and 40 something, not up to 50, and make comparison. It's not about age. Age is absolutely not a factor to commitment, sincerity, and development. Absolutely, I don't agree. Age is a factor to all this. If you are good and committed, you are good and committed. If you are a reverse of these objectives, you are a reverse. already provision has been made for the youth. Let them come and aspire. Are the youth not the one occupying chairmanship of local government, of state, and councillorship? Let us take census of what they are doing and what they are not doing. I am not a pretender at all, and I may not be popular with this position, but I maintain the position that age is never a factor of good governance at all. It depends on individual. Elder people have performed wonderfully in so many climes, including Nigeria. Elder people have failed woefully around the globe, including Nigeria. Youth have excelled wonderfully across the world, including Nigeria, and youth have failed woefully, capital letter W, around the globe and in Nigeria. So I doesn't belong to that. And luckily for me, nobody can describe me as old, and I'm not young. So I am not campaigning for any age group. I am not. But I am being sincere according to my conviction and belief.
Okay, so one more last question before we bring this program to an end. As an APC member, do you see APC retaining power or losing power forthcoming in the 2023 election?
I hope we retain power. I hope and pray we retain power. But the obstacle is huge. Very, very, very huge. To the best that I know, the government have tried to distinguish itself in so many areas from the past and corrupt regime of the PDP. But unfortunately, circumstances of the moment and some of the appointment of Mr. President really do not help matters. Lot of the appointees are people who have lost reality of today and have lost touch with their communities, and therefore they have refused to be accountable to the people. While the president is willing and desirous to make the change, the drivers responsible for all the luxury buses he has given have chosen to be drunkard or people who are not committed. First, to the cause of the president himself, to the cause of our own party, and to the cause of our supporters. You meet many of them and advise on what should be done to stimulate economic activities that will help the populace. They will tell you, no, we are not politicians. We are politicians. Truly, they are not politicians. Since they are not politicians, nobody has sent them, nobody will question them, nobody will confront them, but we are consistently under the flash point of the populace, being bombarded with possible and impossible requests, losing sleep, thinking and planning on how to go back and assist the people. With those who are in a position to do that easily and by fiat are not taking that as a consideration. And therefore, there is general apathy, there is disenchantment on the part of our members who believe that we are only in government but not in power. We are in government without corresponding patronage. And the soldiers that will struggle for the return are weakened and disillusioned. I don't know what magic we will play. But what I am hoping and praying is that PDP is not the option. If we return back to PDP, oh la la, Nigeria is finished. But unfortunately for us as a party, we have not satisfactorily delivered. I hope we will be able to do something radical, speedily, and practically that will rejuvenate, stimulate, and encourage the mass of the Nigerian people to see if we can replicate the revolution of 2015. Fundamentally, the choice of your candidate matters. That is the greatest challenge facing the APC if we are not careful. We may walk toward the trap of the opposition. I hope we will.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We really appreciate it.